Well, howdy! This is going to be the first video in a series of tier lists, ranking thingamajigs for various bands. It's an excuse for content more than anything. I figure it's like a little happy medium because it's not exactly reviews of the bands or the albums, and it's not exactly a ranking, but it also gives me an excuse to talk about these albums and these bands, because I love doing that. I love talking about my favorite music. I love discussing music in general. So yeah, if this interests you, if you want to see more, if you're not already subscribed, please do so. Hit the bell for notifications. Today we're doing Megadeth, only because they were my favorite band in high school. I held them in such high regard, and they've made a tremendous impact on me and my guitar playing in general. And I figured, they have an extensive discography, and they'd be a fun one to do a tier list on. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Let's make myself smaller. All right, so we are looking all good to go here. This is just we're just sticking to their studio albums. So Hidden Treasures, the EP from '95, unfortunately isn't here. But yeah, 16 studio albums, and we're just going to use the standard format for tier list: S, A, B, C, D. D being the weakest. I'm not including F because I don't think that they have an F tier album, but we'll get there. We'll definitely get there. All right. So first off, we have their 1985 debut, "Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good." There's a ferocity to this album that is still very much potent today. The original release did not really have the best production. I think it was massively improved on the 2002 remaster. It's still just the guitar solos, the riff writing, the speed is absolutely furious. They have not been this fast since, let alone like really technical too. I mean, maybe on a few of their follow-up releases, sure, and maybe like their late 2000s stuff, but this is just pure raw speed metal thrash. Left, Rights, Left to Death is still just unreal with how heavy and fast and riffy it is. It's just easily one of my favorite Megadeth songs. Of course, you have Mechanics, Skull Beneath the Skin, a couple more of my favorites, Rattlehead. Yeah, it really is good for what it is. I'm not sure exactly where I would put it. For now, I think I will just put it in A, since it is a classic album and is very highly regarded in the early days of thrash. Even more highly regarded than that is their follow-up, 1986, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? This is probably it's my second favorite Megadeth release. It's absolutely fantastic. Good Morning Black Friday it is a standout track, always has been for me. Just the songwriting is improved, the technical chops are there. Like it's pretty much their breakout album, and a lot of people would say it's their best. I don't personally think so, but I would not argue with you if you said that like this is the best thing that they ever did, because it is remarkable. The Conjuring, come on, Devil's Island, My Last Words, even Bad Omen is just got some of the just coolest riffs, and the solos throughout this thing are amazing. This doesn't go anywhere but S tier. After that, we have 1988, So Far So Good So What. I kind of prefer like the original mix because it's just so like soaked in reverb, so it just sounds big and grand, and I think that works for the album's favor. But what doesn't work in the album's favor is songs like Anarchy in the UK. Like it's an okay cover, but I don't know what they were really thinking with that. 502, I've never been the biggest fan of. Liar's okay, but there are just easily some of the best tracks I've ever written on here. Hook and Mouth, jeez. Set the World Afire, easily one of the best Megadeth tracks, and that it's perfectly like segued into via the title the opening track into the Lungs of Hell. I was always obsessed with that transition. Just the first two songs alone, and of course you have the hit from the album, In My Darkest Hour. So I would probably put this. I'd put this in A, honestly. I think it deserves it. And just so we're clear, the ordering really doesn't matter. Like, if it's in the tier, it's in the tier. I'm not going to, like, organize them or anything like that. Then we have what I consider their best album, and easily one of my favorite albums of all time. Arguably, maybe even my favorite thrash album, Rest in Peace. What is there to say about it? If you haven't heard it at this point, you're doing yourself a disservice. Every single track is good. Every single track is fire, for sure. My favorite would probably be Holy Wars, but just the writing on this is insane. Like Five Magics, Rust in Peace, Polaris, Take No Prisoners goes so hard. And I go back and forth about like the remaster, because the remaster does like up the production, aside from like maybe the drums like snare sample, I guess, but it does make Hangar 18 punchier, like for instance. But the re-recorded vocals are not very they're not as good as the original for sure. But either way, it's a friggin' fantastic landmark album. S tier easy. After that, we have their most successful release, 1992's Countdown to Extinction, and this is I've listened to this album quite a lot over the years. It's very consistent. It's got great tracks on it. It does kind of signal a bit of a shift for them. Less thrashy elements, more straight up hard rock and mid-paced metal songs, and the quality is still there. Obviously, there's great solos. Some of their best songs are on here: "Sweating Bullets," "Architecture of Aggression," super heavy. "Ashes in Your Mouth," that song goes so hard. And of course, like Symphony of Destruction is still a fantastic song to this day. It's not my favorite, but it does deserve a whole lot of praise. I'll put it in A. Then we have 1994's Euthanasia. This is the follow-up to Countdown to Extinction, and it focuses even more on like stripped back songs. Easily some of the best melodies and vocals on any Megadeth record. And like honestly, this one's like super underrated overall. Like it's not even really that much of a metal record as much as it is like a hard rock record. And like it's got great songs. I'm not like the biggest fan of like maybe Family Tree or Black Curtains. Not to say that they're bad songs, but like they don't come close to like maybe the title track, or A Tout Le Monde obviously is a great one. Addicted to Chaos, Elysian Fields, Victory, Reckoning Day. There's definitely a charm to this. It's the only record that they actually wrote in E flat standard, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, it's a really solid album from them. I'll put it in A. And after that, we've got like a very underrated album from them, 1997's Cryptic Writings. It's hard to say. I've maybe listened to this album more than any other Megadeth record. Well, I mean, except like maybe Rust in Peace. Just because I think this is my dad's favorite Megadeth record, between this and Countdown to Extinction. And it's really solid. Like they do experiment a little bit more on songs like A Secret Place and I'll Get Even, Have Cool Will Travel. But they're just straight up rockers on this thing. Even if it's a bit more commercial, songs like Almost Honest and Trust are still fantastic tracks. And I love tracks like Use the Man and Vortex. Even like The Disintegrators is like this just ferocious thrash track like that comes up, and it's killer. Like honestly, like this is definitely an underrated Megadeth record in my opinion. So I'm gonna put this in A. After that, we have a bit of a controversial one. I don't consider this to be one of the best Megadeth records, but there is a charm to it, and I do like aspects of it. There are good songs on it. It's definitely cringy here and there. I'm not the biggest fan of Crush 'Em. Ecstasy is an okay track. But tracks like Breadline, like even though it's a little cheesy and like it's written in like major scale, it's still a decent track. Like I said, experimentation is like full force with these guys. That's why they call it Risk, for crying out loud. But easily like the best tracks. Even like Insomnia is like addictive. It gets stuck in your head really. Like sometimes I'll just wake up and that song will be in my head. It's weird. Prince of Darkness is obviously another great one. Their first song that they wrote in D standard. I even love tracks like Wanderlust. The production is just creepy. It really fits like for what they were going for on this record. Like it tended to like meld together really well, even if it didn't really pay off. And then obviously Time the Beginning and Time the End, more so like the beginning is the better track, are standouts as well. Even The Doctor Is Calling is a solid track as well. That being said, it is, it's definitely not their best. I don't really revisit it like often because it is not really what I seek out when it comes to Megadeth in general. So I'm going to put it in C. But still, it's not a bad album. Then we have a follow-up to that album, the first one without Marty Friedman. 2001's The World Needs a Hero. This used to be like one of my all-time, like just top favorite Megadeth records. And what I liked about it so much was that it was really purely like a Dave Mustaine record. Like he wrote every single song with like no other contributions, except for the song "Promises," which was co-written with Al Pitrelli. And I guess I was just drawn to that for some reason. And like this is supposed to be like a return to form. Like yeah, we're going back to straight like metal, but it's more like a return to like the mid-tempo tracks on like Countdown and Euthanasia. But there are really friggin' good like rockin' songs on here. Like Recipe for Hate Warhorse is way overlooked. Burning Bridges, like god dang, that track kicks ass. And even Disconnect's a good song, even though it's like a slow burner. Or Return to Hangar, or the closing track When, which is like a blatant ripoff, but it's a weird track, but it's still really cool. And of course, Dread and the Fugitive Mind. And even Losing My Senses is like a really solid track, even though it's a bit more like lighthearted and uplifting. It's got its moments for sure. It's definitely not the best Megadeth record, but it's also pretty underrated in my opinion. I'm gonna put it in B. Then we have 2004's The System Has Failed. Now this was actually supposed to be like a straight up Dave Mustaine solo album, but due to like a contractual obligations and such, it had to be released under the Megadeth moniker. Regardless, this is a really good record. Like minus songs I could kind of do without, like Died Dead Enough, even though it has a really cool intro. There are a lot of great songs on here like that just kick ass. Blackmail the Universe, Kick the Chair, even the Vice and Men is really good. Back in the Day, The Scorpion, even I'm even a sucker for songs like Tears in the Vial. There are a lot of really cool riffs and songs, and it's like a lot of good songwriting in general on this album. And it was also really cool that Chris Poland, who played on the first two Megadeth records, was brought in to do guitar solos, and that's hella cool. It's a good album, like from front to back. I still enjoy it to this day. I like the production. The songs are cool. I'm gonna put it in A. Then we have 2007's United Abominations, and this one is really hit and miss for me. Like there are some ideas here that I'm just like, like it's kind of cringe. Some moments on it where I'm just like don't really feel it. But there are some good songs. I think Sleepwalker's pretty damn cool. Gears of War is cool. Don't really care too much for Play for Blood or Blessed Are the Dead. And I think the remake of Tout Le Monde isn't very necessary, but this is where this is just a real show off record. Like Glenn Drover and Dave Mustaine just doing crazy solos on America Stan or Burnt Ice. The title track's cool. Washington Is Next is easily the best track on here. I love it a lot, but it's not one I revisit very often at all. I'm gonna put it in C. Then we have 2009's Endgame, and this one. This is what really like made me like a giant hardcore Megadeth fan, because this came out just as I was starting high school, and it just blew my mind. Dialectic Chaos, Right Into This Day We Fight, kind of harkening back to that Into the Lungs of Hell, into Set the World Afire that was on So Far So Good So What. Really cool. Lots of just ferocious, thrashy songs on here. Killer, chunky guitar tone that I just have always just loved, and it just Ragers like Head Crusher, kick-ass tracks like Bite the Hand, even the title track Endgame. Like sure, it's like straight out like the Alex Jones manifesto, I guess you could say. So it's a little cringe, but other tracks like The Right to Go Insane and 1320, just straight up rockers. Like this is a really good thrashy, heavy Megadeth record. That I don't think gets enough praise. Sure, there are like some iffy moments, like how the story ends is okay, and Hardest Part and Letting Go is kind of out of place. 44 minutes is a little on the nose, but overall, just high energy, killer songs. I'm gonna put it in A. I know the A row is getting crazy filled up, but we got no more A tier albums from here on out. I'll tell you right now. We have 2011's 13, their 13th studio release, and I was really excited about this one. I heard Never Dead, and I was like, geez, this is exactly what I want. Just fast, just ferocious, thrashy riffs, tight and technical, like easily, like, Dave Mustaine's up there as one of the best rhythm players for sure. But, like, this is very much an album where it's just, like, a bunch of, like, a handful of leftover songs from the 90s, or, like, B-sides, or like Black Swan, for instance, is a bonus track that was originally on United Abominations, I believe, and then it was like reworked. It's a very inconsistent batch of material. This is like the first sign of the songwriting beginning to dwindle. There are a lot of tracks I still don't really care for from this album. But still, Never Dead's really cool. I think 13's a pretty cool track. Deadly Nightshade's okay. Whose Life Is Anyway is pretty cool. But other than that, not much else. Other than, Sudden Death was really fun on Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, that's for sure. I'll put it in C. Then we have 2016's Super Collider. This album kinda stinks. I never revisit it. I don't think there's much redeeming about it. Aside from Kingmaker and Dance in the Rain, those are really cool tracks. I think Forget to Remember is okay. But other than that, I don't really care about pretty much anything else that's on the album. This is the first album where they started writing in D standard, and it's not because of that I'm going to put it in D, but it's going in D. It's definitely like their weakest material overall. Then Megadeth kind of surprised us. 2016, Dystopia. They brought in Chris Adler of Lamb of God fame to do drums on this, and you can tell it's him. Like, he's got a distinctive style, and they put together a pretty awesome batch of songs. After Chris Broderick and Sean Drover left, Dave brought in Kiko Loureiro, and I think Dirk Verburen, I think that's his name. I think that's who's actually the drummer for Megadeth. I could be wrong. But yeah, this is a pretty killer record, honestly. It's got a, it's still got some of that cheese from like, 13 era and Super Collider era, but tracks like The Threat Is Real, the title track, Death From Within, even Bullet to the Brain, it just absolutely rock. Post American World, or my favorite track from this album easily, Poisonous Shadows. Just, it's a consistent record. It's got a lot of killer stuff on it. It's definitely not the best. A lot of songs are very, very mid, but it's still a very fairly assembled record from them that I'm going to put up in B. Then we have their newest release, 2022's The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. This definitely shows that they still have chops. Dave can still play and hold a tight rhythm like few people his age can, especially at this speed and technicality. But it's definitely not their best batch of songs. There are definitely a lot of tracks I don't care for at all. I think Junkie is one of the worst Megadeth songs ever concocted. Same goes for Mission to Mars, even though the outro is kind of cool. Some cringe here and there, but tracks like the title track and the Life in Hell and We'll Be Back, even Night Stalkers, really cool tracks. But overall, not really the best package. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in C. And that, ladies and gentlemen, completes the list. So, I don't know how well you can see it. I'll zoom in a bit. This is what rounds out, real tiny now, the list. S, A, B, C, D. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, like I said, consider subscribing. What tiers would you put each album in? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like on this video. I guess I'll see you in the next one, or not. Like, it just doesn't matter, as long as you enjoy.